Alrighty, fellas, it is time to talk Devil May Cry. Well, the Netflix anime, because the one from Studio Mir is finally released to the public, and now I had the pleasure to sit down and watch all 8 episodes. It's streaming now on Netflix. Gotta call it Devil May Cry 2025, because if we go and harken back to the past, we see that there was a Devil May Cry anime made in 2007 by Madhouse Animation. It's kind of funny how things work, but we have a new chapter in the Devil May Cry saga that's been completely rebooted for this era, and it's under Adi Shankar, Studio Mir. Adi Shankar is from Castlevania Season 1 and Season 2 fame. I remember watching Season 1 and going, whoa, this is actually pretty dark, gory, mythological, awesome fucking performance by Vlad Tepes, Mr. Graham McTavish himself. There are no innocents. I thought that was pretty well done with the characters and everything, and Trevor as well. It was very good. I just wanted more of it because Season 1 only had 4 episodes. As we move on to Season 2, double the episode count, double the stakes. I thought that was also really enjoyable by Shankar. He had a grip on knowing what was going on for Castlevania and definitely delivered on the source material and quality that was needed for that. And now we have DMC in our hands. And what do I think of it? Well, I'm gonna start off with the synopsis. Basically, this show is simplistic. No matter how you slice it, it's a very simple premise. Dante is still this sort of demon hunter, a mercenary for hire, going around and killing demons for money, essentially. This is an AU sort of reboot, alternate universe, and you're gonna deal with some origin stories and rework situations for the characters and changes that goes along with it. In essence, it's like 2 antagonists you need to focus on, which is VP Baines. VP Baines is like this sort of Bible thumper, this god-loving guy that's going around and committing all these acts and somewhat atrocities, and he holds this special militarized strike force called Darkcom. And Lady is a part of that. She is a reoccurring character in Devil May Cry. Now she is part of this strike force. Originally, I believe that Lady became this wayward sort of devil hunter herself, but she was a human going around and killing all these demons because Arkham, her father, killed her mom, and it caused these events to happen. Somewhat similar events happen here, but it's kind of different in the fact that Arkham is really a non-factor in this show. Therefore, she joined the strike force to try to recognize and see if she has the skills to really kick demon ass and go in and do her wet work, essentially, because she's going around and getting her vengeance on all these demons that caused this whole situation in her mind. Oh, they caused the death of my mother. All this caused the death of my mother. I don't fucking like demons because my father killed my mom, and now I'm going to lay down some vengeance, and that's exactly what she does in this show. Then you have the White Rabbit. The White Rabbit himself, his goals are simplistic. That's to get more power in order to not only show the humans that they need to perish and die because he has his own secret and ulterior motives from the past, but once again, he needs Dante's perfect amulet. It's one half that is taken from Virgil, and then the other half is on Dante, and he needs to unite that and get the sword, the Force Edge, which he does in the beginning, and then open up the realm to the demonic world with Dante and Virgil's blood. This basically means that it's going to be a lot of chaos as these 2 antagonistic trains start to close in to Dante, and he's like the sandwich in the middle of the track, right? He's got to deal with Baines and his forces and the Darkcom, and then he has to also deal with the greater threat, the greater machinations of the White Rabbit himself. And I thought, for a simplistic plot, I did come out enjoyed, but I want to get into my positives first. The positives here is that Dante's characterization. His character is awesome in this show. Johnny Young Bosch really kills it. At first, people were like, oh no, Ruben Langdon. They didn't get Ruben Langdon, and it would have been cool to hear Ruben be Dante once again, but I think Young Bosch gets the character. I think he understands the character. It's kind of hard to not listen to Dante and not hear Nero out of him, because essentially he voiced both, but I thought he played a younger Dante pretty well. He understood the assignment when it came to just getting all of the quips, getting all of the jokes in there. It's really well done, as opposed to people just going around and taking some of the jokes out of context. I thought it was funny for what Dante was. It reminded me of a prime Devil May Cry 3 Dante's Awakening Dante, where he's young, brash, reckless, and out of control, dancing around like a maniac. If you love your wacky wahoo pizza man, you get that in spades in this show. I thought that was really cool. Next is Enzo, and Enzo, I think it's Enzo. Sorry, I'm really bad with names here, especially Italian, but Enzo was funny. I really enjoyed his character. He was just this little scumbag sidekick to Dante, selling him out, and Dante would like forgive him, say, "Oh bro, you sold me out, but everything's all right, but now you gotta pay me some more money, chief. You gotta pay me some more money to get on this journey and get on these deeds. You know, I need like about 50 grand or something like that," right? I thought the characterization between them felt like a good balance of levity when you see these characters enact in like dangerous situations. I thought it was really enjoyable for what it was, to have a sort of backup buddy, if you will. And then just the part where he dies, I'm gonna be speaking spoilers. I'm gonna put that definitely in the video title and description. You will be spoiled. Enzo dies, man, and I thought that was sad when he has the line where he said, "Oh, you know, Dante, I would take like a stab for you, maybe a little stab," and he steps up to the plate and he gets killed. I thought that was a very emotional bond and moment, and they really made it pay off with this side character. Everything they did with him and Dante's characterization, so far so good. As class, that's one of the two things I enjoyed about the show. Next up is the animation. I know people might kind of wager here and say, "Oh, the animation was ass," or "they had too many 3D bits." So I'm gonna get to that, right? Listen to me. The general animation itself, in my personal opinion, I found to be enjoyable. There is a copious amount of gore though, a lot of blood, a lot of gore, a lot of intense violence, even more than the original anime itself from 2007, and I fucking loved it. I'm a big fan of Mortal Kombat. I'm used to seeing mature blood and gore. I'm used to seeing mature blood in DMC as well, just chopping demons into confetti, watching them go into little pieces, especially in DMC 3. It kind of brings out some of the masochism in you when you actually watch this on display, and I'm glad they stuck to that mature setting of what Devil May Cry is known for. Especially, I felt like some of the later games kind of omitted the blood and the gore and the chaos, especially with DMC 4 and DMC 5. It's not enough of it, in my opinion, compared to DMC 3. This has it in spades, and it might feel edgy, although I think the big fight scenes and set pieces itself was well done. They are filled to the brim with this pulse-pounding rock music as Dante toys and plays with his enemies, chopping them up into little itty-bitty pieces or screaming or one-liners. It's just absolutely chaos. And that's what it's supposed to be. Ultimately, the color grading, the vibrancy, the action spectacle, and the well animated shots, they look really good. They look good towards the backdrop of true grit and grime for Devil May Cry. It certainly felt like Studio Mir made a lot of these intense sequences that all clicked into place. Some of my favorite fights, in my personal opinion, has gotta be Dante versus Lady. Again, a lot of dynamics here. Lady having these jet propulsion boots and smacking Dante in the face and him breaking them and whatnot. It's a lot of small dynamics in some of the fights that happen with people's weapons or stuff getting broken, that gets conveyed in great detail. I thought Dante versus I'm gonna butcher this name, but Calavera? Angelo, basically the bike boss from DMC 5 makes a return here, and he fights it, and there's this long prolonged fight sequence where Dante goes in and out of a Makai portal, and the demon world is kind of different this time around a little bit, where it's kind of hard to breathe for like hybrids, but they go in and out and they're just fighting like motherfuckers, right? They're fighting their asses off, and it's just such an awesome prolonged extended sequence where you don't know who's gonna come out at the end unscathed. And of course it ends in a dramatic way where Calavera, he gets his head like soon in a portal and it gets chopped off, and Dante says, oh, if you only had your eyes to see it, it'd be great. It's just once again lending credence to the strength of the show, which is dramatic action. There was also a good highway sequence as well, with Dante sort of fighting all these demons that are chasing after him. You got Agni and Rundra, you got people from DMC 4, I think it was the Echidna, and he's smacking them around. He's wielding the bike like nunchucks. It's all flowing in a very, very steady animation, which I appreciate. One more fight I liked is him and the mercenaries, and him screaming, oh, who are they shooting at? And Dante's not standing over there, and they're trying to find out where he is. They severely underestimate this guy, and he has the pool cue, and he's smacking the billiards into people's faces and playing around. And then there's the mercenary that tries to rationalize with him. He tries to shake his hand, and then Dante's like, okay, and then he tries to hit him with a cheap shot because he tries to say, oh, you know, come in with us alive, we need your mother's amulet. And he says, no, this is my family heirloom, this means a lot to me, you're not getting it, I don't care how much money you want, it's not for sale. So to see that intertrim break of characterization kind of just made it very, very cool to watch. And I think cool is the name of the game for this anime. It's a lot of cool notions to it, which they really nailed, especially in the fight sequences. Another positive that I think is a no-brainer, is really a no-brainer for people in the back, right? That oh my god, my chair is like all squeaky. My chair is squeaky from all the goddamn stylish hype. But where was I before I got distracted? Oh yeah, Mega Man, the references, the Capcom references, it screams to the inner video game kid inside of you. You're going to see stuff like Mega Man on a trinket on someone's car, or you're going to see a Street Fighter cabinet get brutalized by a thug being thrown into it. There's even a weird reference to Raccoon City existing in this universe, and I'm like, holy fuck, Devil May Cry, Resident Evil on the same plane. I know, I remember, it was crazy when Capcom was making Resident Evil 4 and they decided to say, oh well, this little piece of the project here, this offshoot here of this guy wielding 2 guns and he's calling himself Tony Redgrave, we can't have that. They decided to slice that off, give that to Kamiya and say, this is going to be something new, different, and revolutionary, and that's how Devil May Cry was born. Those references are just, it puts a big ass smile on my face. Even some of the clothing by Darkcom that looked inspired by Captain Commando just a little bit. I think you're gonna naturally love this as a Capcom fan that likes to point at the screen like Leonardo DiCaprio and say, hey, I see what you're doing there, Capcom, I really love that. Or Adi Shankar, I see what you're doing there, and I appreciate that reference. And it just, I know Resident Evil and Devil May Cry on the same plane is fucking crazy and ridiculous, but I thought it all put a smile on my face, and that charm, that formality of introducing that really made me feel like, oh, they are really gamers, they really get what they're talking about or what they're doing here, the little wink at the audience. And I thought it was something that offered up a lot of levity to me personally. Next up is the musical choices, and I've seen people cite this as a negative. I'm gonna cite this as a positive personally. I like Papa Roach, I like Limp Bizkit, I enjoy Power Glove, Bury the Light, all the differing renditions that they had. Therefore, when they came on and I heard them, I was like, oh yeah, I noticed that too. This was music I grew up with back in the early 2000s. Therefore, it's gonna resonate to someone like me a lot more versus someone who's like, oh, I'm interested in the modern music now. That's boomer music. I don't like new metal. I love new metal. All right, just throw some fucking corn in there for season 2, and I'm all set, man. I think that would be perfect. I think the music when it played, because DMC, when you play these games and you experience them and you get your stylish meter up, it's all tuned around just getting you in pulse pounding action, and that's what the anime tried to convey. You have orchestral pieces, these musical pieces that will play in the background, like, oh, that's fucking awesome as Dante kicks ass or whatnot, or you have like something that's a remix that will come up sooner or later. I do think that it could have been maybe a couple of more pieces borrowed from the games, but I mean, what can you do with licensing? They recently had issues with the licensing of Bury the Light on Spotify, therefore I can see why they made their own renditions and everything. And they even had one episode that was essentially dedicated to making this personal Evanescence original score and not having the character say anything, which is kind of a ballsy move, but hey, I mean, at times you gotta put show, don't tell. So I thought the music was cool. It resonates to me, and of course it resonates to what Devil May Cry is known for. If you had Dante and a fucking iPod, he would probably be listening to half of this shit right now, which I thought was perfectly fine. The pacing is also well done. I feel like the show wasn't too long. It overstayed its welcome like certain shows. I believe personally that Daredevil Born Again, some episodes it needs to be like 50 minutes or an hour, because we need that backstory of all the other characters. It's very deep, very layered, very complex, whereas Devil May Cry is kind of like, okay, we could deal with episodes on the shorter side, maybe 21 minutes, maybe 25, maybe 30, but at most you're going to be looking at 30-minute episodes broken down in the span of like 8 hours, because once again, it took me like a while to get through this. It's probably going to take you a little bit shorter, but overall I finished in 8 hours. I could probably finish shorter because the episodes themselves are, like I said, 30 minutes long. But I wanted to analyze every detail and just rewind the tape if I saw something funny, so that probably lended to the time itself for rewatching certain episodes, which led to my episode time being a little bit higher. But this is easily a very binge watchable show in my opinion, similar to Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai, you can just sit your ass there and watch the entire show and be content with what you got in a short amount of time, and I personally felt the same way about DMC itself, and I think you might feel the same way too. Moving on into the mixed, my small nitpick is maybe I do have a gripe with some of the 3D style animations into hand drawn. Again, I think it's fine for how they hand drawn everything, and the action sequences are fucking dope, but they made a flag into 3D CGI intersplice animation that looks really weird against natural hand-drawn ebb and flow of the show, and I just thought that it kind of came off as weird and unnecessary at points. The bike boss from DMC5, Calavera, he looks great in 3D. In motion, he looks great. In his fight, he looks great. Compare that to people like Agni and Rundra, bruh. They look fucking awful. I'm sorry. They just look terrible when they're standing around. It looks like two mounds of Play-Doh, one red and one blue is just sort of conversing, and you put a crudely drawn like white toothpaste style mouth on it, and it doesn't look the best that it could be in some of the CGI spots for the 3D animation. And I just feel like maybe they could have gone with hand-drawn stuff in that department. It didn't really ruin my experience. It didn't take me out of the great bits of the show, but it was distracting when it was just there. It was sitting there fucking around, beating around like a dead drum at times. And I was like, how is it that Echidna looks decent? Calavera looks decent. Agni and Rundra not so much, and we also have the big boss at the end, the big white rabbit at the end turning into a red flaming Cheeto demon boss, and some of his CG looks kind of questionable and weird with these huge chest expansions, and I thought, what the fuck, is he a red tomato Hulk Hogan? Like, what is going on, man? Overall though, I am mixed on the CG 3D aspect in this show. Another thing I am mixed on is Lady's character growth and some of the things they did with her in this show. Granted, it's mixed because there are things that I really kind of, dug a little bit, right? I thought she had a decent backstory with the new AU version. Hey, she grows up and she does this little game of trying to shoot the demons, so to speak, and there was a demon encounter in the subway. Her father gets obsessed with trying to protect his family, and it makes sense. It makes perfect sense, and the only way to protect from monsters is to become one, which is the whole theme of episode 6. That was well fleshed out, and her learning from her aggressive ways in one of the episodes where she sees like this family of demonic commoners, beggars, and they're trying to basically survive, and she's a hard ass to them at first, and then the sympathy creeps in, because at this point I was kind of like on the edge of my chair. If Lady is not sympathetic to this demon family who basically did nothing wrong, then her character would be complete trash. But she was sympathetic to them, and I was like, oh my god, I can breathe a sigh of relief. She's not a total like scumbag to everyone. She has somewhat of a heart, drowned out by a few bad decisions, which I can understand. A complex character layering here. The thing I don't like is the constant swearing, bro. It just got a little crazy at times, I swear. It's like she turned into the female Devil May Cry reboot Dante, where she's saying like fuck every minute. Fuck this motherfucker. I'm gonna beat the shit out of him until pellets run down his leg. What is this dialogue? It was kind of hilarious at first. It's like just repeating it. She said she was gonna beat the pellets of shit down a rabbit's leg. All right, and it's like who would come up with something so creative yet so weird at the same time? It's like not normal for dialogue. Why are we at this point? It's mixed because I enjoy her story, her personal sob story, quote unquote, and how they handle her in some aspects, and then other aspects where she's saying motherfucker like every 2 seconds. It's like, damn, baby girl, did you warp into Samuel L. Jackson or something? Like, I was like, what's going on? It's like you sound like Sam Jackson saying motherfucker every time, and I just thought that the cool factor kind of wore off with that. Really it did. It felt like she was trying a bit too hard to be tough. Now granted, I think she should have been tough. There is some stuff we're going to talk about later with her and toughness, and people kind of saying, oh, she's way too aggressive. I don't think that is the case, really, and I'm going to tell you why later. And I just can't keep my composure because it is absolute comedy gold. It's like a gold comedy trophy that you're watching in the wings. And obviously there's more to it. There are things where people try to bring up points about, oh well, there was the demon guy in the military on the bridge in the games at Redgrave City for DMC 5. They got completely destroyed and bodied by these strong demons. Why is the same not happening to Bane's going down into the demon world with no intel whatsoever and firebombing the place and taking it over? I do kind of have a somewhat counter argument. I mean, if Baines and Darkcom are kind of in bed and he knows the tech of the anti-demonic round, which blows up the demons when they shoot them, I'm pretty sure they have access to those, and that's probably going to weaken some demons going down there at that rate. I mean, well, we could talk about the stronger demons where they were shooting the malformed white rabbits, and those bullets were having no effect when Dante and Lady was using them. So I guess fighting a demon like that, they would have some trouble. But then they have Arius supplying them out of nowhere, and I guess Arius might have some more mythical tech that goes against some of the demons in the underworld, therefore he's helping them. So I can't put it out of the realm of impossibility that Baines at this point hasn't gotten stronger at this rate in terms of his dark calm, in terms of his force as one hand of the government. I wonder what the president thinks about this. The vice president is going down there fucking bombing all these demons. Like, what is going down right down there? So I could keep my mind open for aspects like that, which is why it's mixed. Maybe it will be more explained and fleshed out in season 2. As we go further into this ending, we see Virgil do a complete judgment cut end. He does a judgment cut in, people. It's like, and then they play Bury the Light. I was like, yo, this is hype. They play Bury the Light, and Virgil de-transforms from Nilo Angelo into Virgil. He talks to the demon refugees, and he says that I was a slave to Mundus. I was under control of him, and now I'm trying to sort of forge my own path, or something similar to that. It's not really clear if he's still mind controlled by Mundus or if he willingly works for him at this point, but there's got to be another reason for that, which is why I think season 2 is very paramount and needed before casting judgment, because, well, judgment, of course, judgment cut in. It just had to be punny. Before casting judgment or if this is actually great writing or not, because once again, we just don't know all the details, and this is essentially a tease. They tease Virgil in the beginning with the whole blob that was quote unquote supposed to be him, but it was a fake out, and this is the real Virgil, and now he still seems to be part of the underworld, and he may be working for Mundus or not. We don't know all the details. But I will say it ended off great. He ended off with a great line, sort of saying, I am the storm, and it ends there. I'm kind of mixed because I do like aspects of this ending, and there's parts where I find it to be absolutely ridiculous, but I won't shit on it all like other people because I feel like there could be more explanations. Definitely Baines might be down there with the anti-demon explosive rounds, blowing shit up and shooting people, so maybe they can take on these demons in this universe versus like DMC 5 where they don't have that, it seems, and they're fucked on the bridge, which is why you see what you see in DMC 5. I like to take all of that into account, right? Kind of mixed, but I want to see where it's going. And then we get to the raw negatives. This one makes perfect sense to what I'm talking about. I did not like this whatsoever. Dante is an expert mercenary, yet somehow he keeps getting outclassed and caught by Lady. She makes him look like a joke in certain scenes, and I don't understand that in particular. I know Dante is kind of going with it a little bit near the end when he gets shot in the leg and he's making a fucking joke out of it. Still, I did not like that Dante didn't offer up a bigger resistance to Darkcom. Like, he should have easily got out of that truck, and he's just there, captured. And I'm like, this is Dante. This is the powerful half devil, half human hybrid. It's not like Dante hasn't faced big opposition before and been knocked out or some other shit, but Lady, he pretty much just dances around her and makes fucking jokes and does all this stuff. She doesn't outmatch Dante. Seeing her outmatch him and getting caught was weird to me personally, and I think it could have gone down any other way. I would have preferred, if you wanted it to be easier writing, maybe he wants more intel to find out what's going on, allow himself to be caught, and then breaks out whenever he feels like it, because he can do that. He basically can do that. Another negative that cropped up, and this is no disrespect because I love Kevin Conroy, rest in peace, he is the man, he will forever be my Batman. But as a character, I felt like Vice President Baines was a waste. I really wasn't feeling his conspiratorial Bible thumping notions at all. I wasn't really a fan of it. Dante kind of nailed his character analysis in the final episode when he said it feels like VP Baines hasn't done much of anything besides giving orders that led to Lady's team ending up dead. And I agree with him. I don't know if that was self-referential or what, but it just felt like that's the only thing that happened with Baines until the out of nowhere ending, and I just felt really nothing for his character. I didn't feel intimidated. He would just come up and talk about God for a minute and act like that's scary, and he would have some agenda going on in the background, and that was it. He was nowhere close to being as interesting as the White Rabbit, which is a shocker. I felt like they would do something more deeper and just a little bit more layered with Baines. He didn't even get a backstory as far as where he came from compared to the White Rabbit, and he's supposed to be the secondary antagonist, and they give him nothing, in my personal opinion. So I felt like Baines was wasted potential. He has some great lines here or there, and his voice is obviously Kevin Conroy, so that's going to be friggin' amazing, right? But they could have done a little bit more with Baines, I feel. And the last thing is it's kind of a negative, because Dante does say jackpots earlier in the episode, but when the big bad gets shot in the chest with the anti-demon round, guess who says jackpot at the end? Lady says it. So she's a line stiller almost. It's not the biggest negative in the world, but it did kind of sit there and bug me, and I thought to myself, why? The greatest line ever from Dante and Virgil, and she's like kind of stealing it a little bit. You know, it's a nitpick. It's not like an overall, oh god, it's not worse than Baines, or it's not worse than Lady going around and outclassing Dante, but it did slightly annoy me a little bit. Overall though, I did like this show a lot more than the criticisms. I think there's a lot of good here, and there is a bit of questionable or mixed or stuff that really didn't sit well with me as a DMC fan, but I did enjoy it overall versus everything else. I would say if you want my full conclusion now, it is definitely something where they stay core and true to Dante's character, and there are some moments of characterization. I think episode 6 with the backstory and the storytelling, I thought that was fantastic, telling Lady's story and the White Rabbit and having similes between them. The White Rabbit wants to basically protect the demons down there because he was a human getting abused in the human world, and he went to the demon world and they treated him right and they treated him like family, and then some of that family was dying. That was really great visual storytelling. If I want to add another positive, I think episode 6 was fire. It was really good. It showed, once again, show don't tell with the storytelling, and showing Lady's side as well, where her father's getting more and more obsessive. She wants to talk to him, play with him, but he won't budge. And just not having any dialogue, doing that all through visuals and storybook telling, almost kind of like a Cinderella story almost. I don't know if that's a good comparison, but it looks like a fairy tale book, I want to say, when they switch visual styles. And in the underworld it looks kind of different, and you see these demons eating all these people, and then you find out why Lady and why the White Rabbit, they have these sort of conflicting goals, and in a way Lady's aggressiveness does bite her in the ass, which is why I don't agree with her being a girl boss or whatever, because she created this whole situation and could have died plenty of times in the show because of the demons. We saw it when the demons killed her team in Darkcom. That was definitely her fault. All right, leading them in there and they got trapped. So it's stuff that I don't agree with people on, but I do think this show is a good step in the right direction. I say I want to give it a 7.6 out of 10. Definitely worth the price of admission if you are someone who will love to see AU take on Devil May Cry alternate universe where they do stick to the pre-established Dante character very well, but there are some things that will kind of irk the nerves a little bit, which is kind of why it's not like a 9 out of 10. It's not like an invincible class or whatever, but it is good enough for viewing. I think this is a good show so far for the score that I gave it, but it does need some improvements as we go into later seasons and more fleshing out of antagonists, I believe, which is a fair shake, because yes, they fleshed out the White Rabbit, but they didn't do it for the secondary antagonists. And if you're gonna put like 2 bad guys in here, I expect both of them to get cool treatment. I believe Bane's was probably cut short because it's the episode count. It should have been maybe an episode or 2 longer, who knows, but whatever the case may be, him and Arius are gonna definitely be focal to the next season, as well as Virgil, and I'm hoping they get time to flesh all 3 of them out and make this into a worthy challenge for Dante. That's what I want for season 2, and my score will definitely go up if we get that sort of backstory along with the pulse pounding action and everything that worked in season 1, and I think that's fair to say. There are some things from the fan community I guess I want to bullet point and sort of go down the list that I agree with and don't agree with, but it was people saying, oh, the older anime was more faithful. Well, you could talk about faithfulness, but the reality to me is that, in my opinion, I did not care about Dante and Patty's slice of life bits in the 2007 anime. I'm sorry, it looked really good, of course, and when the action happened, it was phenomenal, it was fantastic, but I feel like the pacing in this new Devil May Cry is far better than the pacing in the Madhouse anime that they made back in the day, because you're getting that pulse pounding action, you're getting those Danteisms, so to speak, you're getting that more often, and it felt like Dante was just sitting around doing nothing until it was convenient in the old DMC anime. I'm sorry, I prefer the pacing of this way more than the older one. They wanted more action, they wanted more demon slaying, and they gave it to us. The old show had faithfulness to it. It definitely took place in the Devil May Cry timeline, much to people's favor, but I'm gonna be honest, to me it wasn't very good, and it felt very slow and kind of boring in bits, and I remember watching it and having that exact same opinion, and I don't believe that that anime is better than this one just because of faithfulness. I believe that with faithfulness you have to not only do something creative with it, but you also have to adhere to some of the fights and everything that Devil May Cry is known for, and some of those elements just feel like they are few and far between to me in that anime to really recommend it. I would rate that probably like a 5 or a 6 if I'm being generous, if I go back and rate that original anime. Some moments that were cool, but few and far between in my opinion. Cringe dialogue. There is cringe dialogue in certain pieces, like the beating the shit pellets out of someone's leg. It wasn't as bad as the Devil May Cry reboot though. The fuck you, I got a bigger dick. It's not as that bad. It might feel a little tryhardy in 1 or 2 segments to me, but I thought overall the misinterpretation of some of the dialogue and the edginess, it isn't as bad as the reboot as people are comparing it right now, so I disagree with that. Dante is a homophobe. I don't get where that came from, but I saw that on my timeline for Twitter. Adi Shankar is a Trump supporter. I don't really give a fuck who someone votes for when it comes to a television show. I feel like that's just sort of this weird logic coming from these 14-year-old stan accounts that always like to bring up if someone is a Zionist or if someone voted for something or someone or they support this cause or that cause, and thus the show is bad. I don't agree at all with that logic. I'm here to talk about the show itself, or critique the show itself, or discuss the show itself, or give praise to the show itself. If someone voted for Orange Man, I don't care. Let's see, the Devil May Cry reboot is better than this. It's all subjective, right? But in my personal opinion, I believe that the community was at its worst when the Devil May Cry reboot came out, because that particular game, if people don't remember it, I do, that game was like pissing on the fans, saying that, oh, I'm wearing a white wig, not in a million years. Remember that shit? Remember like Tamim Dante's like saying, oh, we compared the old Dante to Brokeback Mountain. It was terrible PR, and I don't believe that this project in particular is on the same wavelength, and I think that Adi has gone silent now as far as everything goes, and maybe that's a good thing, because I can't compare it to Tamima Dante's or Ninja Theory, or how they handled that situation, or DMC in general just shitting on the fans. Like I just can't compare the reboot to this. I can't, because it was much worse of a situation. They didn't adopt the original canon. You can do AUs, guys. You can do alternate universes, and you can talk about them, of course, and how they are coordinated, but I don't believe that you should always adopt everything from a comic or a game, because some things, just if you adopt the same story over and over again, I said this before in my Discord, if you adopt the same thing over and over again, it's just gonna get boring. It's just going to get boring to me. I would rather see something new and discuss it that way, as opposed to talking about the same thing over and over again. I don't want to talk about Uncle Ben getting shot 50 times. I don't want to talk about Batman's parents getting shot 50 times. I want them to do new directions with certain characters or new things, and we judge them accordingly, and maybe we get something good out of them. I am a big avid fan of Avengers Infinity War. We know that movie took liberties, and I believe that the movie in particular is not 100% reminiscent to the Infinity Gauntlet saga from the comics. I believe there are vast changes to those books in particular compared to the movie. You can make great AU content, and in this situation, like I said, there is some beacons of greatness to this show, and there's also some negatives that I pointed out, but I do think that the show overall deserves a 7.6 out of 10. Dante doesn't get any wins, and he's too weak. I can answer this quickly. He does beat one of the brothers. I don't know who. I think he killed one of them. The fire one. Is it Agni? I think he killed him. But I just know he bodied one of them on the plane. He's bodied plenty of demons. He's bodied the mercenaries that came in. That was a total clapping, by the way. He bodied almost everyone on the freeway. Dante got a lot of W's. He took some L's in the show. I think it's fine for Dante to lose at times. Otherwise, he wouldn't have lost in any of the games. He wouldn't have lost against the fucking Virgil countless times in the games, like DMC 3, and losing against Urizen Virgil in DMC 5. Dante can lose, people. It's fine for him to lose. I think if he does not lose, then there is basically no urgency if he does not. He needs to struggle sometimes, despite being a super powered half demon, half human hybrid. If he doesn't struggle, then he's a Gary Stu, right? So he's got to struggle sometimes. I think it's fine. He did get wins, though. He beat the White Rabbit in his final form. He might have had help from Lady, but he still beat him. I don't think he's weak. I don't think he's weak in this show. Just some of his L's are probably a lot more noticeable in the show compared to the game, but he does get W's. I don't like his Devil Trigger. That's subjective. You don't have to like the design. Me personally, I didn't find any problem with it. Therefore, it's not a criticism to me, in my personal opinion. The funniest line to me that I saw on social media was that people were saying Dante is not the hero of the story, Lady is, because she gets more screen time. I believe she has a significant backstory. But this is funny to me for a lot of reasons, because Dante is not even the hero in Devil May Cry 4 and 5 for the main lead. The main lead of the game is Nero. So if you have a problem with Dante not leading things or whatever, I believe that ship has sailed in the video games long ago with DMC 4 and DMC 5, where he's kind of like just there helping out the main character, which is Nero. Nero gets basically all of the story that he's given and built up a lot in those two games. So if you have a problem with this, then you're gonna have a problem with DMC 4 and DMC 5 for sure. Okay. That being said, though, I do think that a lot of the plot does center around him getting the blood, that centers around him. Just that they give Lady a lot to chew on as well, so it might seem jarring to some people, but I mean, Dante gets tons of cool moments, so I don't think it bothers me in the slightest. Someone said the DMC timeline was always consistent. I don't know why they didn't get it right here. Oh, brother, I have something to tell you. I have something to tell you that's true. If Capcom was confident in the consistency of the Devil May Cry timeline, they wouldn't have changed it. They would not have changed it, right? Remember when the order of events was like Devil May Cry 3, 1, 4, 5, and then 2 at the end of the timeline? Remember when they changed it to Devil May Cry 3, 1, 2, 4, and 5? Were they confident then? Because they didn't know where to place DMC2 at first, right? So were they confident then? And a lot of people said this timeline change mostly benefited Dante, and it kind of did. Whereas everyone else is kind of like, I don't know where to place this or where to place that. That's kind of a little bit weird now. It's, yeah, I kind of get it and understand that not everything in DMC was consistent for sure. I hope they make better strides to remedy that problem, and I don't know what will happen if they decided to do a reimagining remake that will be an alternate timeline of events from what was taken from that canon as well. I will give Resident Evil the benefit of the doubt that I prefer alternate timelines versus going back and changing the entire timeline for basically, you know, small ulterior reasons, and that's it. But I'm glad we basically never got that for Resident Evil, and they decided, oh, we'll do an alternate sort of thing for the remakes, which is fine. That's fine, but I know people are gonna fucking flip out about that the day that it happens, man. And then some people said that Lady is way too angry, so that is character assassination, and I just think that's kind of stupid because, well, Lady has basically been antagonistic to Dante before. She tries to kill him in Devil May Cry 3. She puts two in his head. She puts one in his head, she puts one in his mouth, so pause, but that's what she does. She tries to kill him in DMC 3 for helping her, and she shoots him in the head in the brain pan for delivering that little compliment and favor to her. So it's like, yeah, yes, they doubled down on her anger and aggressive nature, but she was like that in DMC 3 when she initially met Dante and then grew as a character to like him more and become more open. And we are somewhat seeing that with this new Lady, which is why I did not harp on that way too much, because we did see it. We are seeing her grow into the wholesome person that she is. So maybe we get a little bit more of that in season 2, and I think I was very rational and fair about that. That's just my take on the show personally. I had fun with it overall. It was a fun little gas just watching it. But tell me what you think in the comment section below, and I would love to hear what you have to say about the DMC show. Adi, once again, pretty awesome, man. I like this, and there is room for improvements, but I guess we'll see if we get a season 2. Anyway, I'm Renegade Operative. I am signing out. You guys keep it stylish, and I will see you guys next time. Later.